All right, hello everyone, and welcome. It's been a long time since we did a podcast, but we are back. I'm Scott Withers. I am here with Jeff Corns, and we are at our Resistance Discs warehouse on a very rainy Tuesday in Oregon.
Yeah, so we're happy to bring this one to you in person, bring it on video, still on all our usual platforms, but we are stoked to be doing this one this kind of way. We're working on a lot of ways to improve this and do this better in 2023, but for now, this is what we got, and a little different avenue, so check it out.
Yeah, we wanted to do a year-end recap. It's been a long time since we jumped on a podcast and kind of shared any content. Been busy running tournaments, traveling across the country. Things have settled down a little right after Christmas now, and we can kind of jump right into it. We wanted to hit on some big things from this year, just a recap of everything, because we were on the Pro Tour for most of the year. Some highlights for us, who we thought the player of the year was, who we thought the breakout performer of the year was, what we felt like the tournament of the year was, and then a personal highlight for us and just a couple things that we may have coming up here at Resistance Discs. So let's not take any time. Let's jump right into it. What one do you want to start with?
I think everyone wants to know, our thoughts on player of the year. I think it's a hotly debated topic, and, there's some discussions, I think, in both divisions. Some people probably more clear-cut in some areas than other, but I think it's a hotly discussed one. So let's get right to that.
Yeah, player of the year this year, I think, was a little more up in the air than it has been at times. You had a ton of people winning tournaments this year.
Yep.
Obviously, we got off to a good start with Dickerson with the Discraft thing and winning Champions Cup as the first major of the year. Then went to Europe and had a crazy European Open where someone that didn't play at all this year decided he was going to go win it.
Yeah, and be chased down by one of the best players in the sport and beat the field by a dozen strokes.
Yeah, Eagle capturing that title, and then obviously we all know about number 6 with Paul at Worlds, and then the last major being someone that started the year with almost winning a Pro Tour event in Gannon Burr taking down USDGC. So it was all over the map, no multiple major winners.
Nope.
And if you want to kind of include the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championships as a mini major at this point, because it kind of is with the payout, no one doubled up in any of them. So I will start because I think you're going to be more heated about this one than I was. I looked at a bunch of stats, went back and forth, and at the end of the day, money kind of made the biggest impact to me. And I'm going to say my player of the year is Ricky, and it's just simply because he had the most money at the end of the year. I looked up some other stats with him. He had 3 Elite Series victories with Texas State's DDO and then Ledgestone, which I kind of feel like Ledgestone's the biggest Pro Tour event that's not a playoff event. This year, for 2023, it's going to be one of the couple events that are on the Elite Plus schedule. We still don't totally know what that means. They're weighted a little heavier.
More points, more cash. I think with they're always going to be a 4-round event. So, just bigger, I think. They're like semi-majors, somewhere between an Elite Series and a major. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it means big payouts, too.
Hopefully. And then Green Mountain Championships is a playoff event, which is the first ever Disc Golf Pro Tour playoff event. And Rick was able to take that down. And then to win the Pro Tour finale and win $35,000 in one weekend is the biggest purse that players get a chance to win all year and
in history
and ever.
Yeah.
So between him and then Kristen for the female side, they both took down $35,000 that year. Rick ended up with just a little over $105,000 for 20 events this year. That's my whole career earnings, basically. I'm at $112,000, and I've been playing pro since 2009, and Rick just took it all down in a year. So he's my player of the year. I'm sure you have a different opinion, and then we'll throw it back and forth a little.
So, in my opinion, I understand why a lot of people, think Ricky's up there. He had a, great season. He has the all-time cash record now across all PDGA divisions. He had, 5 major wins on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. But my player of the year, and I think, I've got some points on why I'm going to, argue why this player I think is the player of the year. They excelled at the higher level. They were more consistent throughout the entire year. And I also just got some stats on why I think they played a better season than Ricky. My player of the year is Paul Macbeth. I know that a lot of people are looking at it like, oh, he won Waco, he won Worlds. That's it. He only has those 2 wins. Ricky has 5, 2 versus 5. Like, that's superior. Head to head between Paul and Ricky, they were 8-8-1 against each other. So they had the same number of wins against each other. And this is just head to head. So if one player finishes second, one player finishes fourth, the player in second, that's like a head to head win. So they were 8-8-1 against each other. Rick had 4 wins against him, but Paul McBeth finished in the top 10 against Rick 82% of the time, where Rick only finished 70% of the time in the top 10. So Paul was finishing in the top 10 more. Their total strokes against each other. Paul McBeth had a total strokes against Ricky Wysocki this season at 3,363 versus Rick's 3,431. So Paul beat Rick by 68 strokes total on the entire season. So even when Rick had more wins, Paul was always closer to Rick, and when Paul won, he won by more. Yeah. That 68 strokes over the entire season, that averages to 4 strokes an event. I think that shows some consistency there. Let's see. And then I think the biggest thing, and what makes a big opinion to me, and people talk about these all the time, is the biggest events in the season, not just Worlds, but all PDGA majors being some of the biggest events of our season. Paul's average finish at the majors was 4th. Rick's was 8th.
Yep.
Rick made, and if you want to talk about cash, Rick made $14,000 at majors, where Paul made $38,000 at majors. Yep. Paul made more money, finished better when it mattered the most, and at those majors as well, Paul averaged beating Rick by 6 strokes per event. Rick hasn't won a major since 2017, and I think that when it comes to the top level of competition, that's the defining block. That's what people are always talking about a player's legacy. They're talking about their world titles or their major titles, and I think Paul's edging him out there by quite a bit.
Majors matter. Worlds matters more than anything. That's not a question. If you ask any player, they're going to take a world title over anything else.
Part of that might be because that is like the one out of all the major titles. That's the one title we put on discs. Mm-hmm. There are some people who are getting their there's some USDGC ones now, but no one's really featuring the European Open or European Masters, Japan Open, Australia Open. Some of these other ones that have been around in the past. Worlds is the focus. It's always been.
I'm not saying that European Open is easier to win, because it's not, because you have most of the top talent there.
Yeah.
But the field at the European Open this year, specifically coming off COVID and having a lot of people that didn't travel over there, outside of the top 10, isn't even as deep as a lot of Elite Series events are. Now, you get a lot of European talent that we don't get to see over here in the States all the time that definitely makes up for some of that. But most of Paul's strokes that he got on Ricky in these majors was at that European Open. Yep. Where, like you said, Paul was 12 shots ahead or something, even though he didn't win, was 12 shots ahead of whatever third place was or something. Like, he and Eagle just ran away from everyone. And then Rick took, I think it was 12th place in that, and was just kind of not in it. And obviously, that matters. It matters in playoffs. Like you said, they were 8-8-1 against each other, but in head-to-head tournaments, Rick took 4 of them down, and Paul took 2 of them down in fields that they were both in. Now, if Rick didn't win the Pro Tour championships in the last event of the year, I would have been 100% on your page. We just pulled up some stats from.
I was just looking at European Open.
That is incredible. It's 16 shots ahead of third place. Paul McBeth takes second, loses by 1, and is 16 shots ahead of Kevin Jones, who's in third place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So European Open was just a crazy outlier, right?
Yeah. You got Ricky over here 16 under, McBeth at 41
literally
under.
Lost by
that's where a lot of that shots. Is where a lot of the strokes come from.
Yeah. You could go either way with this. To me, at the end of the season, as a player, would I rather a world title? Sure. But 5 wins compared to 2, a Pro Tour championship with $35,000 at the end of the year, and our goal in this sport is to make money and it to be your job. And at the end of the year, Rick played 7 less tournaments and made $5,000 more. So
sure, made more money, but with that, more events as well. Paul showed a better level of consistency across more events by playing more events than Rick, and came out with a higher PDGA rating. Some people like to discredit PDGA ratings. While we all still have them,
they do tell a story.
Yeah, and over the entire year, Paul McBeth is 1050 rated. Rick Iwasaki, I think, is like 1047 right now.
Yeah.
Like, on average, that means that Paul's going to be Rick by
almost half a stroke
almost half a stroke around.
Yeah.
You know, whether people like him or not, they are still there, and they do gauge the fields that play against each other.
Yeah, I mean, my rating went down all year because I had a terrible year and didn't play very well, and as a result, you watched it go from high 1030s at the beginning of the year down to high 1020s, and then kind of climb back up a little bit at the end. But ratings do tell a story, and then obviously the events you play sometimes matter. We know that go to the Memorial every year, and you're going to go average 1050 and take 14th place. Like, there's just some that they pop off.
I think Paul had his highest rating average at an event at the Memorial.
Yeah, everyone.
It was either that or it was a European Open. He had one tournament he averaged, I think it's the Memorial.
It still had to be a Memorial, yeah.
Yeah, because Paul averaged 1079 at his best event. I saw that off of StatMando. Yeah. And that's got to be the Memorial. Because I know he opened up his year with 1108 and a 1098.
Yeah.
And that's another, I'm calling that one too. I'm bringing that one to the table in the Macbeth versus Ricky. Even though, like, Rick had more wins, I'm saying that Paul had better consistency throughout the whole year. Because also, and I didn't even mention this, Paul's average finish across all PDJ events this year was 7th place.
Okay.
It's pretty good for someone who's on the road full time, touring the whole time. Ricky's was, I think, 8.23.
Okay.
So
similar,
but we'll see when we talk about other players. 8.26. When we talk about other players in our breakout players and stuff, like how close those numbers really get to each other. But I think again, more cash, sure, but consistency over more events, just shows how much higher they were. And like I was getting to with the ratings and the ceiling that Macbeth is at, he had an 1108, because I saw his Instagram post, 1108, 1098. I think he had like a 1090, a couple more 1080s, and it got down to, I think, 1085 or something like that. Wherever it gets down to where Paul's 7th best round of the year is tied with Ricky's best round of the year.
Okay. So
Paul's ceiling, I think, it's higher right now on the year. He was more consistent finishing throughout the year. $5,000 more bucks to those guys who are on their multi-million-dollar contracts.
Yeah.
Like for example, I think both of these guys are donating large chunks of their
winnings
of their earnings to their foundations.
Probably all of
it. That's not what the cash is. Great milestones, obviously, that get recorded, but I think the strokes, the consistency on the course, that's what it's breaking down to for me, and that's why got Paul where he's at.
Sure. And we're at the end of the year. There's no right or wrong answer between these two.
Yeah.
We had so many new winners this year and so many new breakout players, and guess who's at the top again?
Yeah, we had players who were breakout or first-time winners that became multi-time winners on the tour. Like these, we talked about this very early in the season, and I remember mentioning this around Memorial when Drew Gibson won Vegas, that we said we were going to see more first-time winners and more parity of winners the entire season.
And
just because the field was stepping up. It was increasing so much. Like we said, we saw people in the top 10 at Vegas that were like, some of these players are having their best finishes of their career, and they went on to have even better finishes soon after that. The field has, was here, now it's here. It's incredible, really.
But you get to the end of the year, and Ricky and Paul are still 1 and 2, and obviously we're going to talk about some other names shortly that are breakout players, but it's another year, and the same 2 at the top, but the field has got significantly closer to the top 2 than it was previously.
Significantly. And it did too at FPO, and I'm like, we should jump over there.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, there's, and people are going to see this week, a lot of the PDGA standings and stuff. We have Disc Golf Pro Tour Player of the Year awards that have come out already, and those are held to a really high standard. People respect those. People have commemorative discs off of those awards. Same with PDGA Player of the Year. There's going to be differences. Like it's based on looking at the points and stuff. Paul's going to probably win PDGA Player of the Year.
Yeah.
And Ricky won DGPT Player of the Year. Over on the FPO side, Kristen Tatar won FPO Player of the Year, but Paige Pierce is likely going to win PDGA Player of the Year. And they're both points. Disc Golf Pro Tour and PDGA both use earning points to earn these titles to an extent. Paige played more and played more majors, so that's where she's getting that boost over there. But in my opinion, I think you're going to agree with me on this. Kristen Tatar is the clear-cut FPO Player of the Year.
I don't think it's a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you want to look at accolades and stuff like that, there's a little bit of discussion. But I think at the end of it, it's Kristen Tatar with one of the most dominant seasons, MPO or FPO, that we've probably seen.
Yeah, still maybe not as many wins as you would expect.
Like I said, part of that is because probably she was injured. She was injured mid-season.
Yeah.
Took 2 months off.
Yeah.
Also, besides that, just took the West Coast swing of the tour.
Went back to Europe for a little bit.
Yeah. So,
But the wins were at Jonesboro, DDO, and Des Moines.
Yeah.
And once Kristen got on a roll this year, it seemed like she just took off. And just once she decided that she was going to be the best player in the world, just exploded. It was almost like the little mini controversy from Champions Cup. I don't even know if we want to call it controversy, but with her daughter and all that stuff that kind of went down, almost seemed to fuel not only her fire, but also a little bit of the public perception of how everyone got behind her and how much of a fan favorite she became immediately after that. Fan favorite and player favorite, honestly. Listening to other pros just talk about the FPO division, and no one dislikes Paige. That's not what we're saying at all. But
I think
Kristen gained so much respect amongst the players and I think amongst fans with the way that she handled the whole Champions Cup thing and just how much she exploded right after that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things that really stands out, and it's something that players, gain respect for other, their competitors and other players, are just their work ethic. I think that a lot of people early on wanted to hate on Brody Smith coming into the sport and getting a lot of attention and saying it's not well deserved, but you can see off of this year, he's backed it up.
Yeah.
He is competing with some of the best players that are on Team Discraft. He's beating some of those players week in and week out that are on Team Discraft, that are on the elite team. And it's all because of his work ethic. The dude grinds.
Yep.
And that's something that everyone will say, whether they like him or not. The dude has a great work ethic, and he grinds all the time.
He grinds and he takes time for fans. And that we've seen it at autograph sessions. He's the first one there, last one gone multiple times this year.
Yeah, and if you haven't, go to one of his signing sessions because it's sweet. He spends time to talk to all of his fans, too. He enjoys that interaction. And from talking to him, I know that he genuinely does enjoy the interaction. He's not doing it to just put on a show.
Yeah.
He enjoys the interaction. He enjoys the discussion and stuff. If you've got something you want to chat with him about, or you've got a hot topic, you're like, hey, what's your opinion on this, or whatever. Or like, hey, give me a quick what's a quick tip that I can do to improve my forehand or something. He's at those signing sessions, doing that. So the work ethic on the course. And again, that's something I think Kristen Tatar does very well. I love that the Estonians and a lot of the European players call it this. I don't know if you've ever noticed this when they'll post their practice rounds, and they don't call them practice rounds. They call them training days.
Okay.
And I always love that because it's not I'm about to go out and practice. I'm going to train. This is a training day on the course. And I think that's something that's really reflected in her skill and her finishes this year. Is she's always training, she's always practicing, she's pushing herself to get better. I think 2 years ago, everyone was at this, distinct thought of Paige Pierce is going to be the first 1,000-rated FPO player.
Yeah.
And the way that things are going now, we might never see a 1,000-rated FPO player, just the way the ratings work.
Yeah.
But I think now I'm sitting here thinking it's going to be Kristen Tatar, just because of her work ethic, how much effort she puts into it, and then the level of competitor that she is. She's got all the shots in the bag, incredibly talented player.
And got incredibly hot at the end of the year, too, winning the playoff event at GMC. And then winning Worlds, obviously, which was before GMC. Got those out of order. But then taking second at the Throw Pink Championships, which is essentially USDGC for the girls.
Yep.
And then winning not just winning, but really dominating the Pro Tour finals kind of the whole time. So for me, and it sounds like for Jeff, very little discussion. Kristen, especially once she turned it on the second half of the season, just kind of ran away from everyone. And as Paige, I'm sure, will tell you, didn't quite have the year that she would have liked to have on her own. Katrina was brand new sponsor, played really well early in the year, went through some bumps in the road, but still ended up with a solid season too. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, this is a pretty clear cut.
Yeah, and I just pulled this up because I was curious about some of these particular stats for Kristen Tatar. So this was brought up quite a few times, and I just want to echo this because this is insane. Never finished off the podium at any Elite Series or major event this year, or any event for that matter. She had one DNF, but I'm not even going to look at that. She, her average finish is 1.58.
Wow.
That's nuts. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, that's like one of those, like, I'm speechless. Like, there's not much more to comment about on than that's just nuts. You know, this.
Yeah. No, I think that speaks for itself. I don't think there's really anything else. There's no other stats that you can throw out there that are going to signal better than her average finish this year was 1.58.
Yeah.
In events that she played.
Yeah. She averaged either winning or taking second, basically.
Yep.
And just to compare, we'll go look at Paige Pierce for 2022. Her average finish was 5.32.
Yep, and we know at the end of the year, Paige struggled a little bit, and there was some tournaments that I'm sure she would like to have back kind of later in the season.
Yeah, and you've got some too that you'd probably say, oh, that's an outlier. Like
she
took 21st at U.S. Women's. That's probably one of her worst major finishes in a very long time.
You don't know if
she took 18th at GMC. You have no idea what's going on in someone's personal life.
Someone's hurt.
Yeah,
dealing
what
with stuff,
might be
playing
going
through
on.
it.
But besides some of those outliers, her average finish is, it's only going to improve to like 4 at best.
Yeah.
If you knock those out, maybe. So.
Yep, it's 100% true.
Yeah.
So that conversation's what it is.
An insane stat.
Yep. So
one that might, with someone who plays like 20 events in the season.
Yeah.
That statistic might never be beat.
Yeah. Let's go to breakout player of the year.
Yeah.
For the guys, and I think we probably have the same one for this, as this was kind of his first year really going crazy, and that's Gannon Burr for me. He introduced himself to the world in Vegas.
Yep.
And took second at that, and really should have won it. Could have won it.
Had the opportunity to win it.
Yep. Threw OB on the last hole, made the putt to make par, but Drew was able to birdie and send it to a playoff, and then obviously that played out how it did, and Drew was able to take it down. But in reality, that was Gannon's introduction to the world, and all he did was continue to push all year, and probably not going to spend as much time on this as player of the year, but the win at Masters Cup, and then he decided to go and win a little major to end the year.
Yeah, I mean, youngest major winner in years.
Is he 18, 17 still?
I want to say he was. I think he is now 17. He was 16 at the time when he won USDGC. Youngest major winner, I think, since Will Schustrick won USDGC for his first time in 2010.
Yeah.
I mean, hats off to that. That's incredible. And again, this blew my mind as well. We talked about you talked about Ricky almost surpassing your career earnings in 1 year.
Yep.
Gannon Burr accepted his first PDGA cash in 2021 last year. His career earnings now are over 100,000 as well. He had 86,000 in career earnings this year, which is just, I mean, for one, the sport's growing massively.
Right, payouts are bigger.
Yeah, that opportunity for payouts are much bigger. But to rack up that much money in 1 year, I should have spent more time to this to go look at this, see the number of players that his career earnings have already surpassed.
It's a lot of really, really good players.
Yeah, players who may have been household names on the tour for a few years now. How much he's passed them in just 1 year.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, this is why I was talking about this earlier with Macbeth, the average finish of 7th. Gannon Burr's average finish across Elite Series and Majors this year was 7.82.
Yep.
Which is better than Ricky's. In PDGA points, and for those who aren't familiar with PDGA points, you get points for beating every single player in a PDGA event. So, the bigger events that you play with a larger field, and then the higher the tier is, there's a multiplier. Gannon was 3rd in PDGA points.
Sure.
5 points behind Paul Macbeth. And then in DGPT points, he was 4th. His PDGA rating at the end of the year was 5th in the world at 1043, and then his world ranking on UDisc was 4th. So
we talked about the wins. It was also obviously the second place in Vegas, a third place at Ledgestone, which we talked about probably being the biggest Pro Tour event that's not a playoff event or a major.
Yep.
And then also third place at the Pro Tour Finals. And this was a whole year thing for Gannon. I don't even think this is close. We talked a little bit before we came on air about Isaac Robinson maybe being in the conversation.
Before USCGC, I'd say the conversation was a little more open with some players. And even saying most, if you include most improved or breakout or
he
rookie
them all
of the year,
for me.
where this combines some people have Simon as their most improved because he went from his previous career best of 1 Elite Series in a year to 4. You still have Gannon taking this another level and capturing a major title, which we talked about earlier, is some of the biggest events in our sport.
To me, Gannon pretty clear. We've talked about the wins. We've talked about the placing. We talked about. He made $86,000 this year just in tournament winnings. On the female side, I'll let you go first on this one because I've got a name I don't know if we're gonna kind of agree with here.
All right, for my breakout, player of the year, we're just calling it breakout.
Yeah.
I got Valerie Mandujano. Her average finish across events, 7.59. She was 7th in PDGA points, 5th in DGPT points. She had the 6th highest PDGA rating at the end of the year at 969 and was 11th in the world rankings come into the season. She won her first 2 Elite Series events this year. Broke out with that. She had never won one before or even contested for one before, I would say. And she came out, firing early in the year, too, to start at Waco. And she beat, our pretty clear-cut player of the year. She bested Kristen. Outplayed her, too.
At Waco.
Yeah, at Waco.
She ran away from the Waco field a little bit, too.
Those two had a separation amongst the whole field at Waco. And it came down to, probably one of the clutchest shots of the year. If in the FBO division, we'll just say that because everyone's going to, look at Paul's throw and putt on 17 at Worlds as, some of the shots of the year. But in the FBO division, she threw one of the clutchest shots on the 17th hole, throwing backhand on that hole from in position against the wind. Everything should, and park that shot.
That hole's so hard. If you've never been to Brazos East,
go play that hole in calm conditions.
Go par it.
I'd love to see you birdie it.
I would love to see you par it. If you're listening to this, in reality, all of us take a par on it, and we're like, all right, let's move on to 18.
Now let's hop into the moment where you're contesting for your first Elite Series title against one of the best players in the sport right now.
Yeah.
Let's throw in the conditions of the course because it is always windy there.
Oh, that time of year, always
insane. Windy. Now it's windy. Now you're competing on the biggest stage of our sport. What are you going to do? You're probably going to double bogey it. You probably are going to throw it out of bounds in the water. You're probably going to miss your putt. Welcome to this stage. Valerie Mandujano, not going to do that. And then a dominant win at Portland Open.
Yeah.
She smoked the field at Portland Open. So
on big courses, too.
Yeah. And then followed that up with a Silver Series win at the Beaver State Fling. I think she had a fantastic year. I think the only reason she's lower in the UDisc rankings is because it prioritizes and favors more recent status.
Sure.
So I think, if you look at the whole season, that world ranking probably jumps up. I think she's easily a top 10 player this season.
Absolutely. I'm going to go just a little different direction and someone that you may say wasn't even a breakout player just starting this year, but someone that has played in multiple divisions over the course of the year and made $70,000 or $69,000. I'm going to go with Owen Scoggins for my breakout player of the year because it's not that no one knew who Owen was because she's been good for a long time.
Sure.
But all she did this year was take 5 second place finishes in Pro Tour event and in Elite Series events, 10 top 10s, and then took second at the Pro Tour Championship on her way to making almost $70,000 in a year. And
to also just throw in a highlight for you on that, she also won the DGPT Match Play Championship.
Okay.
Which was one of her, a big payday, I think $10,000 payday for her.
And I wonder if that was even included.
I think it's probably an XA tier on
probably.
the PDGA, so it's probably not going to be listed as an Elite Series or something. But I will definitely agree with Owen Scoggins having a fantastic year.
Yeah, I don't think there's a wrong answer between them.
Yeah.
I understand completely why you went the direction that you did with Valerie with the 3 wins or whatever, and then just like
I look
totally
at Owen
out.
Scoggins on like where Simon's at, where they have been great or they've been really solid. They've been a consistent competitor, and they took their game to a new level this year. I feel like they're more like most improved than like breakout, like coming onto the scene for the first time. But I'm on the same page with you. Owen Scoggins, like, hats off, fantastic year as well.
2 great ambassadors for the game too, between Valerie and Owen. Like, Owen's 40, young 40s.
Yeah, 41, 42.
Young
she
40s,
started
like,
playing Masters.
And just probably doubled her career earnings. I don't know why, but I should have looked this up, and Jeff can pull it up real quick. But I could only imagine, like, even just the PDGA page should be able to, like, tell us. For those of you that haven't used it, Statmando,
love Statmando,
which is run partially by our buddy Dion Arlen, who now lives up in the Seattle area, or Olympia, I think. But
so career earnings, she's almost at $117,000, $5 short.
69,000 of it was this year.
Yeah, that's impressive.
So you can do some math, but that's considerably over half of her career earnings.
Yeah.
Or this year at 41, 42 years old, whatever on is.
What we're like, again, because it's not on the DGPT or in FPO, I believe what she won in FP40 is she won both U.S. She probably competed in, I bet, FPO and U.S. Women's, but Masters Worlds, pretty sure she is our FP40 Masters World Champion.
Yeah, we should have been a little more prepared with that.
This is your player, man.
I know. Well, you got the computer going. My computer's recording our podcast, so I got my phone.
Here we go. Oh, yeah. She also smacks everybody in Pro Masters. Both of them. Yeah, she did compete in FP40 at U.S. Women's.
And Masters Cup.
So Masters, because that was on the other weekend, the alternate weekend. So U.S. Masters. Oh no, wait. U.S. Masters and Masters Worlds. Yeah, here we go. And
only won by 14. Yeah. So, I mean, Owen totally busts onto the scene this year. She obviously takes her fitness really seriously, and you can tell, like, during any YouTube stuff that she puts out, and just kind of like how she's taking care of herself. And she's 971, over 40 years old, which has to be the highest that we've ever seen.
977 right
977 now. She's went up 6 points. So there's no way we've seen a lady eligible to play in the 40-year-old Masters division ever be over 975, because very few women in general have ever been over 975.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely impressive.
So both Valerie and Owen, incredible years. Owen didn't have the wins necessarily in Open, but she had 3 in FP40. Yeah. And then Valerie obviously had the 2 Elite Series and 1 Silver Series wins. But pretty crazy years. And with Kristen and, I don't want to say struggling, but with Katrina and Paige maybe not playing up to the expectations that they had going into the year, the field was a little more wide open, and we saw some different winners, and the game's getting way more diverse in that FPO field, just like it is in the MPO field. And who knows who we're going to see win in tournaments next year as we get more younger athletic people jumping in both the MPO and FPO divisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gannon's 6'10",
like 4,
10.
At least.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
like
6'10" sounds good.
6'10" sounds accurate at 16 years old. We just found a picture that I showed that I think I posted on my social media today of when I was senior in high school, and I'm like 5'10", probably 135, 140 pounds. Now this was pre, obviously was like running nonstop and ran cross country in college for a year and stuff. So I was not built like an athlete. I was just running all the time. But Gannon is a gigantic kid that's like a full-blown man essentially already at 16, 17 now, years old. And these are the type of, I'm going to call professional athletes, your Brody Smiths, that are now jumping into disc golf because there's enough money in the sport for it to be worth their time.
Yeah, absolutely. I just found a picture that I pulled up on here of Gannon with Paul Macbeth and Nate Sexton at McBeast Challenge when he was, and this is probably like
4 years ago, whenever they were running those.
Yeah, I'd say maybe like 5 years ago. It's like, just when Paul, it was probably one of Paul's like last years on Innova. And he's like just above Paul's shoulder. Now Paul's like probably at Gannon's shoulder.
Yeah.
So, the guy's come a long way. Come a long way quick. I loved this video. I don't know if you saw this. I think maybe his mom posted it and tagged him in it. She posted him when he was like 12 or 13 years old at Winthrop, birdieing hole 18. Like, as this young kid, like, I'm not great, but I'm like a decent player. Like,
how many career birdies you got on 18?
Maybe one.
Right? And
maybe
you played
one.
it 10 times.
Yeah, hole 18 at Winthrop is hard.
I don't know if I have any in tournament play. I may not.
Yeah.
Who knows? I usually double that hole.
And he clutched up and did it in that moment, got the birdie to win the event. But also, like, I love the video of him, like 11, 12, 13-year-old, whatever, super young Gannon, birdieing 18 at Winthrop. Mm-hmm. It's just like, oh, here's a little deja vu moment of what the kid's going to be doing.
Yeah.
And, incredible.
Yep. So congratulations, obviously, to all those players, as they don't need congratulations from Jeff and I, but just for the accolades that they've got throughout the year and the ones that they're going to get as awards are announced or have been announced already. A big part of what we do is play and run events, run tournaments and stuff. So Tournament of the Year was something that we wanted to recognize. Yeah. And I think maybe the two biggest tournaments balled out this year and really showed what it is. And I will be honest, I've been pretty critical of some of the things that the PDGA has done and some decisions that they've made, especially with like rule changes and stuff. And I thought they've been a little tone deaf to a few things. But they put on one dang good world championship, and that's not even the tournament that I'm going with. But I'll let you hit on that first if you want, because I think that's where you're going.
That's my tournament of the year. And I, for not just the quality of the tournament, but I think also what the fans at home got to see from the event. I think the World Championships was my tournament of the year. A lot of people were excited to watch Paul take down his 6th world title. Mm-hmm. Absolutely incredible milestone that a player may never reach again in like the modern era. It's just so difficult to win now, and to pick up 6th in your prime of playing when all these people are elevating their game. It's going to be something difficult to do ever again. The playoff,
And let's be real, 6 to win number 6 with today's field, and to win number 1 in 2012.
Yeah,
they're not the same thing.
No,
it's not the same. That first win in 2012 had a field that was not near as deep, near as talented, and near as competitive as this one was.
I remember on Jomez talking about if Aaron Gossage was to pull it off, he'd be the lowest ranked player to win Worlds, where he was in like the mid-20s or 30s.
And Aaron's a stud.
Yeah,
he does everything.
Aaron Gossage is a baller. That guy's got all the throws. He's a fantastic putter. Like, he does everything right on the course,
Yeah.
The field is just elevating so much more. That's why you see guys like Ricky or, Eagle finish outside of the top 10 at some of these events, because the field is just so talented and so deep. It's harder to, always be at that level. You can't have any off rounds to be, in the top 10 of these events now. So, Worlds on the MPO side, exciting as possibly can be. I was excited on the FPO side as well. Kristen Tatar, first time a non-American player has taken down a world title in 18 years in either division, but specifically in FPO. She also had the best rated women's performance ever at Worlds, 1,009 rated average, I think, or just over 1,000 rated average at Worlds. That just shows that division is elevating as well. And then it was well run. Like, everything at the event was put on right. I know that a lot of the players were looking for a little bit more out of the courses. They give us what they can out in Kansas. There's little texture of the terrain, and then only so many trees in the great state of Kansas. But
I actually thought the country club was a lot of fun. It was my first time going out too.
And that's what I think I told you before the event. Yeah. I thought the Emporia Country Club was one of the better golf, ball golf, disc golf courses on the tour, because it does have some elevation. It does have some character to it. There's the water that comes into play. I think it's an exciting course, and it really, helped build the drama that was at the World Championships this year.
And Jones was fine. I didn't have a problem with Jones. It was better than if you remember the 2 courses we played last year. I'm on record saying I thought the Fort was okay, and was like, if that was your worst course in a World Championship, like, you'd be all right. But then we played Mulligans, which shouldn't even be a B tier course, honestly.
It's a bad B tier course, in my opinion.
I don't know how else to sugarcoat that. The courses in Emporia, while they're not the best in the world, they're good compared to what we've played recently for Worlds.
I again, like I said, I would like to see a more contrasting style of course than, you have your traditional golf course, and, I want to see some more woods. Like, it felt like we had
Jones the Park course.
Yeah, it felt like we had some combination of, like, we have, like, OTB Open, where we have, like, this long golf course, and then we have, like, Winthrop is the other course, where we have this OB, like, artificial OB ridden open course with, like, a scattering of trees.
Yeah.
And I feel like those two don't combine into, maybe the best show, or they get the best contrast.
Yeah.
But, exciting tournament from both divisions. That's my tournament of the year.
Sure, I'm going to go to one I don't always love the course, but the tournament experience is so good, and there is never a year without drama. And that is USDGC, or the Throw Pink Championships for the girls. We'll combine them into one because they are 2, I guess, separate tournaments. They're run on the same weekend at the same location. I hadn't went in 2 years out to USDGC. One COVID year wasn't, because Oregon's regulations were so strict.
You lost all the West Coast.
I lost a whole year. Yeah, I just wasn't able to travel with my job and with other things that were going on at that time. And Oregon was so strict with COVID restrictions. It's like, if I was out of the state, I basically had to stay out of the state, and that wasn't an option. And then 2021, played a couple events, didn't qualify, didn't go. Got back in it this year. Went out there, and to be honest, I was hurt. And, I played terrible. It didn't take away from the tournament experience. The fly mart, the vending, the food that's around the whole time, how they take care of players is second to none.
And they've elevated it, too.
100% better.
I always thought it was well executed previously, and it's been elevated even now.
1,000%. The warm-up area was way better. The tournament experience for players.
Private parking where you don't have to drive through the course anymore. And no one drove through the course anymore. They just didn't even use that parking lot, which, brings its own challenges for the USDGC team, losing some of the parking on site.
Yep.
Well executed tournament. They paid out better than the World Championships.
Always do. Because Innova can fundraise all year specifically for that, and they do.
And that Innova East crew is now reaching out and working with other manufacturers as well. They worked with Discraft as well this year, and that helped elevate it as well. Yeah,
the full experience is incredible for the tournament. Winthrop produces drama all the time.
Absolutely.
Every year. It doesn't matter. It seems like a player can have a 10-shot lead going into the back 9 of the final day, and it's going to find a way to get interesting, and it always does, because the second the nerves come into play on that course, you're bleeding strokes out, and you're doing it quick. And let me tell you, on a weekend where you don't have it out there, you bleed strokes out the whole time from the first hole all the way until you limp into the finish line in round 4 and 75th place or whatever in the world I took this year. But just the experience of being back out there, and Worlds was incredible too, and the team that ran it obviously had their stuff together. The player experience at USDGC is always better. They just do a better job taking care of.
Yeah.
Here's your refreshments, here's your snacks, here's
your warm-up area.
Your disc golf strong guys here, your bathrooms
disc
are here.
golf cart from the warm-up area to the first tee.
Yep. Yeah, you're taken care of, and I've always said this about USDGC. It's the one sport where we're truly treated like professional athletes from the time we walk on the property until the time we leave the property.
Yeah, I think and I agree with this, Thursday to Sunday, that tournament was one of the absolute, that's a high bar they've set. I got to watch some of the Monday qualifying. I think they lacked.
I got to walk some of the Monday qualifying.
Yeah, we both watched with some of our homies for Monday qualifying. I think they, maybe forgot a little bit the Monday qualifying was happening. In my opinion, there There wasn't a lot of spotters out there.
It wasn't ready.
Like I had one stroke and distance hole where, you know, like multiple players like threw their shot and they're like, what if we're out of bounds? We're going to have to walk 500 feet back up this fairway. And I'm like, I'll go run up there and see if you guys are in bounds so you don't have to rethrow. And they're like, yeah, that'd be great. I don't want to have to, you know, walk all the way up there, walk all the way back. So there was also no water out on the course. There was come tournament time, but, you know, those guys played to pay the pay to play the Monday qualifying. Yep. Get them some water, get them some spotters.
Yep, I think that's something that they will fix
hopefully
in the future because I
people,
think they got
you know,
some
gave
feedback.
them some feedback on that, and they're going to take note of that. But besides that, great event. You know, I love going to seeing events like that we go to annually elevate every year.
And it seemed
I've
like
gone to that event now for, I think this is like my 4th USDGC that I've been to. It's elevated every time.
The course is what it is. I will say that, like, it's not everyone's favorite course. It's probably not my favorite course. I've never been a huge fan of Rope OB. I like disc golf courses where you shape shots through trees, through gaps. They can be park courses, but I like the ability to kind of work a disc. USDGC is not that. It's the OB fest. Landing zones all the time.
Over distance.
I will say, and I think part of this is kind of when they put the Throw Pink Championships in last year with it too. The course is a little more forgiving than it used to be.
Yeah, I think
there's some more hazards in spots where it lets you be a little more aggressive off the tees.
Yeah, where it used to be stroking distance.
It's a little more fun to play now.
Yeah.
That helped outside of the, hole 13? What's the 13, 14?
Yeah, I didn't love hole 13.
13. That was a terrible tee shot change.
Not a great redesign.
No, not a great redesign.
And green change, too.
I didn't hate the green. I just... You don't need to be, especially for camera purposes.
Sure, I love it when,
to put us behind a 20-foot
this is my
mound.
Basket, and then there's a tree right here.
There was that.
You know, can you see the basket mark? No, you can't.
No, and pretty iconic green, although not a great one that was replaced.
I thought that was an iconic hole that I think they lost something on.
Yeah, I would.
The tee shot.
Imagine it's going to change back next year.
Yeah, that's one of the things as well. Yeah, they get feedback and then they adjust.
Yep.
You know, they made that gauntlet hole, which was previously it was hole 3 one year. Now it's hole 5.
Yeah, they made it better though.
Yeah, they fixed the gauntlet hole. They got rid of the 4 Mandos and they just had
one double Mando, not 2 double Mandos. So they do take feedback. That course is always changing. It is never going to be the best course that we play all year. Like
they're always tweaking that course to try to match the level of competition that disc golf is at, which I think it's great.
One last thought on tournament of the year, and this is not something that the host or the tournament can really take control of. However, I will say with an Emporia, the town wants you there. As disc golfers, it's in the middle of nowhere. There's really not much to do. It's hot, it's miserable, or it's crazy windy or whatever. Like you're in Emporia, Kansas. But everywhere you go, are you a disc golfer? How'd you do today? Are you a disc golfer? Like, what place are you in? How did you finish? Like, hospitality like you've never seen as a disc golfer, but they're used to having big events there. However, Charlotte/Rock Hill is still Charlotte and Rock Hill. Like, it is one of the coolest places in the country to get to spend a week or 2 or however long you're over there. There's always things to do. The weather is generally good that time of year. You can see rain and you can see hot and muggy, but this year we got just incredible weather. It was 70 degrees and no windy.
Yeah,
no wind
I think
every
the
day.
best weather I had while I was ever in Charlotte.
Yeah, you can be outside at night. You can eat outside. Like, there's restaurants and things to do and places to go. I know it's not like a USDGC versus Worlds thing, but if you give me the choice between spending a week in Charlotte or spending a week in Emporia, Kansas, like, it's the tournament experience and the location. Yeah. There's no place that we go for the year that's better than going to Rock Hill and Charlotte.
If I could take the people of Emporia and put them in Rock Hill,
sure.
Doesn't really get better as a tour spot, I think.
We're down south. People in Rock Hill are pretty good.
Those are some
too.
nice people down in the south. The Southern hospitality was definitely there.
Real nice.
We saw that the first morning when we had breakfast. That place was sweet and the people are great.
Yeah.
But it is awesome. Like, the people, obviously, like the Southern hospitality, like I said, but everyone understanding that, like, you're a disc golfer, that's what you're in town for. It's cool having that experience where everyone's talking to you.
It's very unique.
About the event, like what's going on. And they're stoked about it. They're genuinely stoked that you are there in their town, competing for that event. So
Yep.
It's something that's cool, and I definitely like seeing that.
Sure. To the two top tournaments, they lived up to the hype this year. The drama lived up to the hype.
Yeah.
Like, everything played out exactly how it should in those two events, and they stayed as the top two events. And really, like, I know we have more than two majors, but let's be real.
The other majors also, though,
You have
fantastic.
two majors, then two European Open and Champions Cup are both tournaments that we really want to win or be competitive at. Obviously, Champions Cup was a first-year thing as players, but there is nothing like Worlds and USDGC.
No, player experience, fan experience-wise, both fantastic, awesome to go to. I mean, but like I said, shout out to those other two majors as well. Like, you haven't been to the European Open yet. This was my third time going to the European Open. Super awesome experience. It's always one that I don't want to miss if I, can. Always want to be there. The number of spectators that are out there is insane. I think they had almost like 7,000 to 8,000 spectators the final day of the event, which doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, isn't a ton compared to other sporting events. But when you put all those people on a disc golf course, that is so many people. Yeah. It is insane. So that, awesome, spectacular. Well run as well. Again, they've got your special practice area, path to get to the first tee where you're undisturbed by anybody.
Those little things matter, too.
Literally, that event has hundreds of volunteers between spectator control, spotters, tournament people, everyone incredible on that side of the event as well. That event is so well run, and I want to see more. I wish more people could go to that event to see how they can make their event better, because I think it's one of the, again, one of these high bars that they're setting out on the tour. And then Champions Cup, again, came out on the first time. Yeah. Fantastic event. Great course. Great venue. It could have been a little bit better from warm up to the first tee. You kind of had to
there were some things that need to be improved.
Yeah, which I'm sure that the PDJ is definitely working to improve. But awesome again. They put everyone up for a giant dinner, the very first players dinner, the first night before the event, which they had catered by RecTech Grills, amazing barbecue company out of the South. Great event, great venue. The majors, if you're running an event or you want to learn how to run a better event, go to a major, take it all in, see what those events are doing. They are, they're the golden standard.
And they were. And the Disc Golf Pro Tour has done an incredible job of streamlining everything, so we as players know what to expect every time we go out on the course. And there's accountability, and you can actually reach out to people when something's not right. And they know it's a work in progress too. But for real, the sport is in a great place professionally. Payouts are continuing to grow, and they need to. But it's, we're going to be at a place soon where players are making as much playing as they are in sponsorships. And that would be nice, because we have never been there. It's always been, you got to make your money on sponsorships, and then anything that you can kind of supplement that with playing is a bonus above and beyond.
Yeah. So we're finally getting to that point where, we've always had the top players making more off the course than on the course through sponsorships. But now it's getting down to the point where, number 30 in the world can make, just as much on the course as they can from their sponsor.
And finally a full-time, good living, and be able to, maybe put some money away. So,
yeah.
Let's wrap this up with a personal highlight from the year. What was something that stood out to you? What is something that you either got to help with or you were involved with that just, that you're going to remember 2022 for?
I think one of my, personal highlights of the year, or one of my favorite things that we got to do, was at the Resistance Discs Open this year. We had an awesome partner. It's our title sponsor, Swatch. They basically brought out the works for everyone. They were able to help us get every single amateur in our field.
72 players.
Yeah, 72 players, our little B tier that we had, Awesome thing that we got to work out with them. Everyone got one of their Swatch Legend bags, which is a $270 bag, just in their entry fee. You got to play a pretty awesome golf course.
Their entry fee, which was $95?
Yep. Oh, yeah. $95 entry fee. Full-size golf bag. Yeah. Not a bad deal. And then, of course, you get to go play 2 rounds.
Yeah.
First round was a little cold and foggy. Second round, beautiful day out in Oregon. You really couldn't ask for better in November, for sure.
It took me a while to wake up. I don't remember the first 10 holes.
So I think you just decided to forget the first 10 holes.
I might have parred them all.
Yeah.
I don't know if I parred them all. I might have like one
No, I
birdie
think
and
you
one bogey. I
one
was
birdie,
even
one
through
bogey.
10.
You were even through 10 though.
I was even
Rough
through
start.
10.
Hey, but that 1079 rated second
Yeah,
one was
when I
not too
popped
bad.
off a 20 under for the next 26 holes or something to end up losing by one.
But yeah, working with Squatch on that partnership was awesome. We've got some cool things in store with them next year. They're going to work with us on one of our events next year as well. Cannot wait. Nothing but great things to say about those guys. And yeah, definitely probably one of my highlights is being able to put something like that together.
Yeah. I had a couple highlights from the year. One off the course. Obviously got married this summer, so that was a big thing in my life, and everything is going great with that. I'm extremely lucky that Kaylee is by my side every day and gets to go frequently with me to tournaments and stuff as often as she can sneak out of work to do so. But on the course, was able to pick up a couple A-tier wins, which I hadn't had in a few years. We just haven't had any really to play over here in Oregon / in the Northwest, and was able to go back up to Canada to kind of southern British Columbia. It sounds like a long way away, but it's about a 6.5 hour drive from my house up to BC Open and play one of the coolest courses in Raptors Knoll. If you have ever had the chance to be up in the BC area, Raptors is such a cool course. It's not like incredibly hard or anything, but it's just on a beautiful piece of property with what you would expect in British Columbia, with mountains in the background, and just really cool park and a really well-run tournament. There's actually 2 courses this year, but to go back up there and have a pretty convincing, I don't know, maybe double-digit stroke win at that A-tier was big. And then to pick another one up in October on a rescheduled A-tier, which was supposed to be beginning of September, and then there was so much smoke and wildfires in Oregon that it got rescheduled till the end of October. Was able to go in honestly pretty injured and throw maybe 2 sidearms for the whole weekend. It was very few on courses that you kind of need them, and to go take down an A-tier at Eugene Celebration for the 1 year it will be a A-tier because it's dropping back down next year. But on a playing wise, it was kind of cool to pick up a couple of those, and just my first year of being, I'll say, full-time on the road or 3/4 time on the road, like to see a bunch of new places, to go to different cities, to spend time in areas of the country that I'd never got to do that before, and I can't wait for next year to be able to do it again. So I think those are my highlights, but we here at Resistance want to give a huge thank you, obviously, for listening to this, but also for all the support in what has been kind of a crazy busy 2022. And as a company that Jeff was able to get started kind of during COVID, we've grown so much in the last couple years, and I know from my end I want to say thank you, and I think he probably would echo the same things.
Absolutely. For anyone that watches our social media content, podcasts, watches our YouTube videos, has bought a disc from us this year, any little bit is incredibly appreciated. We so much love the support. We always go like to read these comments, see what you guys are saying, try to improve it all. We want to bring you guys some fun, exciting stuff to see. So, if you get a chance, go down there, tell us what we can do better, tell us what you want to see us do. If you've got some ridiculous video idea, tell us. We might go out and do it. We were talking about today, there was 40, 50 mile per hour gusts outside, and we're like, we should just get our flippiest discs we have and go see what we can do at one of our courses around here. Like, let's go do something fun like that. So, if you have something in mind, if you can think of something, drop it in the comments somewhere. We'll check it out. We might go give it a shot. So yeah, thank you guys so much. We really do appreciate it. And
we'll be doing this more often, so we're trying to jump back on the once a week thing and be able to get these on YouTube and then also on all of your favorite platforms for podcasts. So have any things that you'd like us to hit on, go ahead and shoot us a message and let us know. But until next time, we'll see you guys later.